When you think of the greatest investors, names like Warren Buffett probably pop into your head, right? But what if I told you there was a brilliant mathematician who kind of quietly built a system that made Buffett's legendary returns look, well, modest? This is the incredible story of Jim Simons, a man who used science and technology to literally decipher the financial markets. Okay, so just how good are we talking? Look at these numbers. Buffett and Soros, they're absolute legends, pulling in around 20 to 30%. Impressive. But Simon's Medallion Fund, it averaged a mind-blowing 66% annually for 3 decades. That number is so high, it feels like it has to be a typo. It's not. And that's the puzzle we're here to solve. You know, this fascination with numbers, it wasn't something he learned. It seems like it was just part of his wiring. This famous story from when he was just 3 years old kind of says it all, doesn't it? It's the perfect preview for a life spent obsessed with finding the right numbers. To really understand how he pulled off those insane returns, we have to go back, way, way back, long before he ever thought about Wall Street. Because the unique toolkit he used was actually built in the worlds of pure math and, believe it or not, secret intelligence. I mean, just look at his early career. It's a highlight reel of academic brilliance. MIT for math, a PhD from Berkeley, then he's running the whole math department at Stony Brook. What's the one thing you don't see here? Anything about finance, not a whisper of Wall Street. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. During the Cold War, he worked as a codebreaker. So while other future investors were learning about balance sheets, he was hunting for hidden patterns in encrypted Soviet messages. It was his first real experience using algorithms to find a meaningful signal in a whole lot of noise, a skill that would end up defining everything. At the peak of his academic life, he co-authored this paper, The Chern-Simons Theory. It was this beautiful, genius piece of super abstract math. At the time, everyone thought, okay, that's really elegant, but it was seen as totally theoretical. It was math for the sake of math, with no real-world application anyone could think of. But here's the twist. Decades later, physicists figured out that this useless theory was actually essential for things like string theory and quantum computing. It's been cited over 20,000 times. This becomes a recurring theme in his life, solving an abstract problem that ends up having this massive, completely unforeseen impact down the road. So, here he is. He's got a stellar academic career. His name is literally on a famous theory in physics. And what does he do? He does something nobody expected. He just walked away from all of it. And his reasons were surprisingly simple. He was almost 40, felt like he'd climbed that mountain in academia, and he was ready for a new challenge. He was also pretty blunt about it. He wanted to make some real money. So he starts a hedge fund. But here's the key part. He didn't immediately unleash his math genius on the market. At first, he actually tried investing the old-fashioned way, reading company reports, analyzing fundamentals, and it wasn't a huge success. The magic formula hadn't been discovered yet, which leads us to the central question, right? After that conventional kind of rocky start, how did he pivot and create a system that would revolutionize finance and generate those unbelievable returns we saw at the beginning? Well, the answer came when he realized the market wasn't a story you needed to understand, but a code you needed to crack. And to crack a code like that, you need a very, very different kind of team. This right here, this was his game-changing idea. A typical hedge fund hires finance grads, MBAs, Wall Street insiders. Renaissance, Simons hired mathematicians, physicists, and yep, code breakers. In fact, he actively avoided people with finance backgrounds. He thought they came with too much baggage and too many biases. He just wanted brilliant minds who could find patterns in data, period. And their method was pure science. First, collect just enormous amounts of historical data. Second, have your scientists search for faint, predictive signals hidden inside it all. Third, build a model from those signals. Fourth, let the model trade automatically. And fifth, this is the absolute golden rule, no human intervention. No gut feelings, no panic selling. The model was in complete control. What this created was a black box, really one of the first true AIs in finance. The model's logic was so complex, built on tiny correlations a human brain could never see, that even its creators often didn't know why it was making a specific trade. All they knew was that it worked. And to protect this secret weapon, every employee signs a lifelong non-disclosure agreement. And here's how they made it work without predicting the future. They weren't trying to be right on every single trade. Their goal was to operate like a casino. They just needed a small statistical edge, to be right a little more than 50% of the time. But when you make millions of tiny automated trades, that little tiny edge compounds into enormous, consistent profits. The results were so good that they could charge fees that were just astronomical. We're talking 5% for management and 44% of the profits. Think about that. They took almost half the gains. And yet, even after giving that up, clients were still earning double what any other fund on the planet could offer. So when you look past the billions of dollars in this legendary fund, what is the lasting impact of Jim Simons? Well, it's pretty wild, because his legacy really exists in two completely different universes at the same time. I mean, on one hand, you've got his legacy in pure science. A theory that started as a thought experiment is now fundamental to cutting-edge physics. And on the other hand, you have his legacy in finance, where he proved that a black box AI could systematically beat the market, kicking off the entire quant trading industry that basically dominates Wall Street today. Later in life, Simons turned his problem-solving skills to philanthropy. He identified a problem. Great math and science teachers were leaving for higher-paying jobs. So his foundation now gives thousands of them a $15,000 annual bonus. He's literally using market incentives to fix a problem in education. And that kind of leaves us with this final big question to think about. Simons, the ultimate master of the market, saw a failure in the market for teachers and used his own fortune to try and fix it. His entire career was built on finding an edge by attracting the best and brightest minds. It really makes you wonder, what does it mean when a society's most vital jobs, like teaching, are struggling to compete for that same top talent?